Imagine a young bird, its wings spread wide, ready to take off. It's perched at the top of a tree, gazing at the vast blue sky ahead. The gentle wind brushes against its feathers, freedom awaits, yet something inside it stops it from taking that first leap. The bird sways back and forth, looking at its strong wings, but no matter how capable they are, it can't shake the fear. It knows it was born to fly, but it's afraid of falling. And there it stays, at the top of the tree, with the whole world before it, yet trapped in the comfort of fear. Now, stop and think, have you ever felt like that bird? With so many possibilities within reach, yet held back by something invisible, stopping you from moving forward? The bird isn't without options, it's simply paralyzed by its own doubt and insecurity. It fears the unknown, the mistake, the failure. And often, that's exactly what happens to us. We have the wings, the potential, the skills, the dreams, but something inside us tells us we're not capable, that we can't fly. Just like the bird, we, humans, are also endowed with immense potential, but we're consumed by the fear of failing. Maybe the fear of falling keeps us from jumping into what we truly want. Or perhaps the fear of making a mistake paralyzes us to the point where we'd rather stay grounded, safe, never exploring the vast sky of our own lives. What separates us from our true potential isn't our external limitations, but the fear of flying. The bird is afraid of what it hasn't yet experienced, what it hasn't lived through. And so are we. But what happens if, like the bird, we decide to face that fear, and instead of waiting for fear to control us, we take the reins and dare to fly? The bird wakes up every day with the same dilemma. It feels the wind shaking the leaves around it, sees other birds flying in circles above, yet its claws remain tightly gripping the branch. In its mind, the idea of flying is terrifying. What if it falls? What if the wind is stronger than it seems? What if it just doesn't work out? Interestingly, it doesn't realize that the greatest risk isn't falling, it's spending its entire life without discovering what it means to fly. Meanwhile, other birds, less concerned with the consequences, are already exploring landscapes the bird can only dream of. Now think, how many times have we found ourselves in exactly this situation? We have dreams, projects, or even changes we know we need to make, but we stay clinging to our branch out of fear of making a mistake. Like the bird, our comfort zone may be much smaller than it appears, but leaving it seems too risky. And, of course, there's the judgment. Just like the bird watching others soar, we constantly compare ourselves. If they can fly, why can't I? That thought only deepens our fear and makes us believe something is wrong with us. The paradox of fear and freedom. Let's dive deeper into the contradiction that seems so absurd. The bird has wings, the sky is there for the taking, but fear keeps it grounded. At first glance, it seems irrational. But, if we think about it, fear might actually be a logical reaction. After all, flying is something it's never done before. The unknown is terrifying, both for the bird and for us. Now, imagine the bird's internal dialogue. What if my wings aren't strong enough? What if the wind suddenly changes? What if? These what-ifs are the same ones that invade our minds when we're about to make an important decision. Want to change careers? What if I fail? Want to start a relationship? What if it doesn't work out? What we forget, and what the bird also forgets, is that fear isn't the enemy. It's a protective mechanism, an internal alarm that prepares us for risk. The problem comes when we let it take control. When fear becomes a tyrant, it turns the sky into an obstacle instead of a possibility. And here lies the great contradiction: the bird will only know if it can fly when it tries. The same goes for us. The freedom we so deeply desire, whether emotional, professional, or even spiritual, is on the other side of fear. But to reach it, we have to do something that goes against our natural instincts: trust. And here's the most beautiful irony: freedom and fear go hand in hand. There is no courage without fear. There is no flight without the first leap. And often, The only way to overcome fear is to walk right through it. The invisible cage, limiting beliefs that trap the bird. Now, imagine that the bird, looking around, notices something strange. It's not in a cage. There are no bars, no doors. But still, it feels trapped. This is the perfect definition of an invisible cage. These cages are created by our limiting beliefs, those ideas we accept as truths, but in reality, they imprison us. For the bird, it could be the belief that it wasn't born to fly. For us, it could be anything: I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, or it's too late to try something new. These beliefs come from many places. They can be taught by our family, like when we hear, "Dreaming big is dangerous." They can stem from past experiences: "I failed once, so I'll fail again." Or they can be born from the fear of judgment from others: "What if I try, and everyone sees I'm not capable?" Now, picture the bird, perched on the branch, thinking about what it would be like to fly. It watches other birds soaring through the sky, but instead of feeling inspired, it compares itself. "Look how fast they are, how graceful. I'll never be like that." Comparison is one of the cruelest tools of our own cage. But what the bird, and we, need to understand is that the bars of this cage are an illusion. They aren't real. And to break free, the first step is seeing them. Here's a practical exercise: think of something you believe you can't do. Now ask yourself, why do I believe this? Is it really true, or just a story I tell myself? The most freeing thing is realizing we can rewrite these stories. Just like the bird can choose to believe in its wings, we can choose to believe in our potential. The other birds fly, comparison as a burden. While the bird struggles with its invisible cage, it begins to notice something that seems to make everything worse: the other birds. They are flying high, crossing the sky with apparent ease, and our friend can't help but compare itself. Why can they do it and I can't? Is there something wrong with me? These questions echo in the bird's mind and become an invisible weight that holds it even more firmly to the branch. Now, bring this into the human world. How often do we catch ourselves looking at others and wondering why their lives seem so perfect? Social media, for example, is a showcase that only displays the best angle. But what we don't see is the effort, fear, and failures that came before that flawless photo. Comparison is tricky because we always look at what others do best and compare it to our worst moments. It's like the bird watching another bird's perfect flight, not realizing that at some point, it too stumbled in the air and fell. And here's the most interesting thing: the other birds aren't really competing with it. In fact, they aren't even paying attention. They're too busy living their own journeys. There's a popular saying, "The grass is always greener on the other side." But maybe the problem isn't the grass. Maybe it's the way we're looking at it. If the bird stopped comparing itself and started focusing on what it can do, it might realize that the first flight doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to cross the sky like a champion right away. It just needs to flap its wings and try. And here's an important thought: you'll never experience the freedom of flying if you're constantly looking at others and waiting to be as perfect as they seem to be. What if the sky is a myth? Facing the unknown. Now, imagine the bird finally gathers the courage to fly. It flaps its wings, feels the wind against its feathers, and for a moment, the feeling of freedom is intoxicating. But then, it begins to question itself: what if the sky isn't what I imagined? What if there's no space for me up there? The fear of the unknown is one of the most powerful emotions we have, and often, it's what keeps us from taking the first step. The bird is afraid of falling, of not being good enough for flight, of discovering that the sky isn't as welcoming as it thought. This is what happens when we place unrealistic expectations on something. We create an idealized idea and pressure ourselves to reach a goal that might actually be unattainable or irrelevant to what we truly need. When we talk about success, self-discovery, or life purpose, the tendency is to idealize something, as if there's a perfect sky where all our goals are achieved effortlessly, with no frustrations, no failures. But the truth is, the sky isn't a utopia. Flight isn't a straight line. It's a continuous process of adjustment, learning, and adaptation. And every time the bird flaps its wings and faces the wind, it becomes stronger. This fear of the unknown is deeply human. We've all felt that insecurity when faced with something new, something we don't know how to control. It could be a career change, the start of a new relationship, or even the decision to dedicate ourselves to self-discovery. There's always a part of us that asks, what if this isn't what I expect? Here's an important perspective: the true value isn't in reaching the perfect sky, but in how we adapt to the unpredictable winds while we fly. It's in the process, the journey, that we transform. So, how about challenging that fear of the unknown? The sky and our goals may not be what we imagined, but that doesn't make them any less meaningful. The important thing is to step off the branch and try, even without knowing exactly what awaits us. One day the nest will be missed. What does fear cost us? Time passes, and the bird remains perched on the branch, stuck in fear. It watches the other birds take flight, but still hesitates. With each passing day, it loses something, not just the chance to explore the sky, but also the opportunities to grow and live fully. Whether in nature or in human life, the fear of the unknown comes with a cost. The bird that doesn't fly not only misses the chance to discover new horizons but also loses the opportunity to mature. The fear of failure keeps it trapped in a version of itself that never challenges itself, that never steps out of its comfort zone. This is the price of fear: it prevents us from growing. And the worst part is, we often don't realize the immediate cost. Fear doesn't just show up in major failures or dramatic situations. It seeps in slowly, in moments when we give up on something, when we choose to stay where we are, even though it suffocates us. The bird on the branch thinks it's safe, but it's losing the chance to fly to new horizons, to discover who it could really be. Now, imagine the impact of staying in the comfort zone. In human life, how many of us stay in routines, in unsatisfying jobs, in relationships that don't fulfill us, out of fear of leaving that cage? The cost is lost time, missed opportunities for self-discovery, and the chance to live fully. The metaphor of the empty nest leads us to reflect on what happens when we don't take risks. One day, it empties. The safety nest we built, which seemed to protect us, ends up becoming a prison. When we look back and see what we could have lived, untraveled journeys, dreams not pursued, conversations never started, we realize that the greatest regret is not having tried. The bird doesn't know what the sky holds, but it will never know until it flaps its wings. Similarly, we will never know until we decide to face the fear and take that leap, even with no guarantee of success. Flying is not the destination, it's the process. Finally, the bird is flying. But, contrary to what it imagined, flight is not a final destination, but a continuous journey. It flies not because it reaches a specific place, but because the act of flying itself is transformative. The sky that once seemed so distant is now within reach, and paradoxically, the more it flies, the more it realizes that flight has no end. In life, this is incredibly reflected. Often, we chase a destination, a goal, an objective, and believe that once we achieve it, we will finally be complete. But just like the bird, when we reach the destination, we realize that what mattered most was the path we took to get there. The learning, the internal changes, the small victories along the way, these are what truly transform our journey. As the bird flies, it learns about winds, currents, about itself, and the world around it. It begins to understand that the true value isn't in reaching a final point, but in how it grows and transforms in the process. Flight is the highest expression of who it is, who it's become, and who it's becoming. Similarly, in our lives, personal growth and self-discovery are continuous processes. It's not about becoming someone finished or complete, but about always evolving. Every moment of introspection, every small achievement, is a step closer to our true potential. Flight, just like life, is not about a destination, but about what we learn along the way. Fear may have paralyzed us, but by allowing ourselves to fly, we discover who we truly are. Freedom isn't about not having fear, but about using that fear as fuel for flight. True strength comes from the act of flying, from allowing ourselves to experiment, make mistakes, learn, and grow. Just like the bird, which never knows where the wind will take it, we, too, will never fully know where our journey will lead. What matters is not the destination, but what we learn about ourselves in the process. The bird that is afraid to fly isn't limited by lack of ability, but by the belief that it can't. It has everything it needs to fly, just as you have everything you need to transform your life. Fear is natural, but don't let it define what you can achieve. Maybe the sky is vaster than you imagine, and by taking the first step, or the first flight, you'll be surprised by the freedom and strength you never knew you had. Sometimes, the only way to discover how far we can go is by allowing ourselves to try, allowing ourselves to fail, and most importantly, allowing ourselves to grow. So, what's holding you back from opening your wings? What's keeping you on the branch? Life is waiting for you out there, and just like the bird, you only need to trust the process. Flight is not the end. It's the beginning of everything. If you feel this video touched you in some way, leave a comment below. Share what's stopping you from flying and how you plan to face it. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because we have many more reflections and insights like this to share with you. Remember, the sky has no limits, and the only thing between you and it is your courage. So, what will you choose now? To fly or stay on the branch? Until the next video.